Hi, my name is Holly Guerrero, and the presentation that I'm going to give is on diversity training and preparing for diversity in presentations. Diversity is something that I have dealt with a lot in my life due to my background. I'm part of a multicultural family, multiracial family, and I've seen both sides of the coin. I've been discriminated against, I've seen my family discriminated against, and I've also been accepted and seen my family accepted. And so this is a very complex issue, especially in the workplace. And this is something that many companies are actively seeking a solution for. Diversity training is a great thing that offers remedies by addressing some of these most common points of conflict that can arise in the workplace. During this presentation, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the scope of diversity training and how to effectively deliver a presentation to a diverse group of people. So what is diversity training and why is it really necessary? Diversity training is a growing trend that we're seeing among corporations and businesses. And this goes hand in hand with the increased globalization movement of corporations. The need to maintain a sustainable and competitive workforce is growing. And with the globalization of companies, companies are also utilizing and needing employees that are knowledgeable in these different areas. So with the increased globalization, the companies and corporations are needing employees who are more well-versed in these different cultural aspects and to cater to global customers. This can also cause problems in the workplace, however, whenever there's a gathering of many diverse employees and there's little understanding between them. Diversity training has a broad definition and it can mean many different things to many different people depending on the circumstance or whatever issues have arisen within the company that have prompted the need for diversity training. Just as a generalization, we know that diversity training can include gender differences, generational differences, and cultural differences among people groups. So creating a culture of inclusion helps us to diminish the us versus them mentality so that teams can then effectively work together to accomplish these company goals. So why choose diversity training? Well, diversity training can help to accomplish many vital goals that are dependent on an organization's success. These can include a competitive workforce. It improves the workforce's productivity, can address the needs of the workers, and the potential benefits are very clear. So for the competitive workforce, globalization means that, as I mentioned, a diverse workforce is also needed in order to maintain that competitive edge. It does improve productivity within the employees because the groups of people can then come together and begin to understand their differences, and it helps them to work together as a team toward these set goals. Now, while it may appear that in today's society, these companies have chosen to do this based on social pressures, the real need for diversity training within the workforce lies in the need to maintain and increase profits in a global economy. Addressing the needs of the workers can increase productivity and morale. This is extremely important because whenever we see productivity go down, we can do a needs assessment on the workforce, and a lot of times we'll see that they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel appreciated or valued. And so fulfilling these needs for the workers can help to raise the morale and therefore affect their productivity. Addressing these issues proactively is the best way to go because then we can avoid potential lawsuits that could also arise from discrimination. The potential benefits, as I said, are clear. The studies show that employees who have had successful diversity training, it's improved their employee retention. This lowers costs when it comes to having to constantly train new employees if the turnover rate is high. It increases the morale of the employees, it reduces harassment and discrimination, and it also improves the worker opinion of the company as the company strives to treat its employees with respect. There are many different types of diversity. A few, just to briefly go over, include age differences, gender, race, cultural differences, appearance, income and social status, language differences, and education levels. When you're preparing a presentation for a diverse group of people, there are a couple of things that you can do in the beginning. The main thing would be to get to know your audience. Learn the demographics of your audience before you ever stand up to speak in front of them. This is going to help you to connect with your participants, boosting their motivation and their buy-in. Participant buy-in is important in order for any training session to be successful. Don't make assumptions about your audience. Be very careful that you don't assume that they believe the same thing that you believe or have experienced the same thing that you've experienced. On that note, also be open with yourself prior to performing any training session. Examine your own assumptions that you have about certain groups of people and give yourself the time, allow yourself the opportunity to let those assumptions go. When preparing your training, you must also understand that in any group of people, you're going to have a variety of learning types. So prepare for that. Make allowances for that. Instead of just formulating your presentation for the auditory learner, make sure you have supplemental material that caters to the needs of the visual learner and the kinesthetic learner. Boost motivation within your participants. Make sure that you use inclusive words that include different groups of people instead of words and phrases that exclude certain groups. Be conscious of the pronouns that you use and avoid overgeneralizing. For example, if you're talking about a manager, don't always use the pronoun he, as that implicates that managers are always male. And if you're talking about an assistant or a secretary, the stereotypical thing would be to refer to her as she. And while that's okay, you have to also make sure that you're giving some variety there. Use of metaphors is a great idea whenever you're trying to portray a concept rather than using generalizations. Make eye contact with your participants. Smile at them. When you assume that everyone wants to be valued, you will create that connection with the trainees and boost their confidence and ease with you. Stimulate your audience. Include them in training games and activities that allow for group and individual participation. This will help them to feel more a part of the training session rather than just an observer, especially if they're there by obligation. Many companies are now requiring that their workers attend diversity training, and it may be something that they're dreading, they're not interested in, they don't even want to be there. So do the best that you can to engage the learners and make this interesting subject matter for them. Make it important. Most people desire to be engaged and interested in the subject matter anyway, so provide them with this chance to contribute. Create a secure environment for your participants. Begin by sharing a little bit of your background and assure your trainees that you are there to assist them in their learning process. Creating a secure environment is essential in order for the participants to give you their full attention so that they can best learn the subject matter. When you're communicating with a diverse group of people, there are a few simple steps that you can take to make sure that you reach the maximum number of people with the maximum amount of impact possible. Speak clearly and concisely. Say what you mean and avoid negative speak. Enunciate well and avoid using dual meaning words or dual meaning phrases that may pass over someone's head. Speak simply. Avoid using too much technical language. Speak to their understanding. Pay attention to your group's responses and be an active listener as well as a speaker. Gauging the responses that you see in your group's faces and maybe verbal responses will give you an idea of how much they're grasping and how you can accommodate them as you go. Give them time to soak in the information that you've given them. Don't ramble on and don't go too fast. Show respect from people who are from different cultures. This can help to reduce their stress level, and a person who's not stressed will have a much greater capacity for understanding the information that you want to portray. Your body language speaks volumes. It's very important to be aware of the body language that you're giving. Even if your words are full of acceptance, if your body language demonstrates non-acceptance, then there is an inconsistency in your overall communication, therefore generating distrust. Smile. Be open. Your body language can help to put others in the group at ease. Avoid large movements with your hands and arms as it can be intimidating and misconstrued. On the other hand, keeping your arms crossed may lead people to believe that you're not interested in their input. There is a balance, and being conscious of the body language that you are portraying is important. It's an unspoken form of impactful communication. Avoid using jargon and slang whenever possible. These types of phrases and words are usually regional, and they may be people or group specific. It may cause some people who are not a part of that region or that group to feel excluded, like they don't have an in with the trainer. While it may make people who are from that area or that people group feel more comfortable with the trainer, the point here is to reach as many people as possible and to form a culture of inclusion rather than catering to specific groups. In order to effectively communicate with a diverse group of people, avoid phrases that aren't readily understood cross-culturally. Ask for feedback. This is a great time to understand how your presentation was perceived. Offer clarification for something that may have been misunderstood. Allow them an opportunity to ask questions. This type of communication also allows the participants to feel like they're valued and they're actually a part of the training. Summarize what you've said at the very end. Don't assume that they understood it the way that you meant it. Summarize your content in short and concise manner. Then make sure that you highlight the things that you want them to walk away with. Another important part of giving a presentation is training games. Offering some kind of activity that's going to stimulate them and engage them in the training matter will increase their absorption of the information presented. You can start off by openers. Openers are a popular activity that are often used as a vehicle for getting the participants to break the ice. They often introduce themselves, give a little bit about their background, and get to know each other some. Remember that many of the participants there are there out of obligation and not because they chose to be there. So choose your opener carefully and base it on the audience that you know you will have in front of you. This is going to be your first impression, and it's going to set the stage for the rest of the training session. There are also communication activities. They make a point to the participants about the importance of communication within the team. It also demonstrates how poor communication can lead to misunderstandings. These type of activities also highlight the importance of listening and how listening is an active role of communication. Team building activities help the participants to relate to each other. This is especially important when it comes to a diversity training session, as the desired end result would be for the trainees to take the information that they've learned in the session and apply it in their real-life work experiences with their coworkers and among their teams. Topical activities would include training games that are specific to the subject matter being addressed. For diversity training, there's a short clip that I watched on YouTube from The Office where Michael Scott was conducting a diversity training session. It is a hilarious clip, but it depicts a role-playing game that was intended to highlight the ways that we perceive people from other cultures. This satirical depiction was unsuccessful for many reasons. He was a horrible presenter, and he, if you've watched The Office at all, you know that he is the main one to make assumptions and generalizations and make fun of people and isolate people and insult people, discriminate, and all of that. So for him to be in a diversity training role was out of place. But the activity that they did gives you a good idea of some things that you can do that expose preconceived ideas and the ways that we generalize groups of people. And it also showed how reluctantly, but it got the participants up and moving around and interacting with each other. So just to conclude here, I do believe that diversity training is a very essential trend, and I'm glad to see it becoming more commonplace. Trainers are very essential to this process and making sure that the subject matter is conveyed in a neutral and effective way in order to reach as many people as possible. It's important to be sensitive to the experiences and the differences within the workforce in order to take advantage of their full potential. Just because somebody's different doesn't mean that they're any less capable or that they have less knowledge. They may have more knowledge in one area and less knowledge in an area that someone else is knowledgeable in. But that's the purpose of the workforce, is to identify where people are most effective at and to put them there. And I think that that's something that with the globalization of corporations, that's something that we're going to see happening in the future with diversity training and future training sessions.